Hey there everybody, welcome to My Green Pets. I'm William Green. The LED lights are going to kick on here in about 10 minutes or so, so they might kick on while we're recording, but that's okay. You'll get to see the difference between just what they look like in sunlight versus what they look like under the artificial light. But wanted to show you what was going on. It's interesting, the catasetums, two of the catasetums have started to grow. As you know, most of the Cattleyas are also growing. So it's kind of springtime in here. Also, here in Colorado, the sun will not set until 5 o'clock today. So we've already added lots of minutes since the solstice. And yeah, spring is in full swing. So let's have a look at what's going on in here. All right, I'm going to show you my Cycnoches cooperii. First of all, it's still got roots actively growing, and it has a new growth poking out the side there too. So this, in my opinion, would be a great time to repot. I'm thinking maybe a slightly larger pot to give room for the newer growth, and hopefully next year's growth would be at least twice as big as this one, and maybe get some flowers there. So stopped watering this plant a couple weeks ago, and you can see the leaves are yellowing and will be dropping off soon probably, and will not water this plant until that new growth has put out some roots, and that those roots are quite long, reach the bottom of the pot, well established, and the plant's ready to take some water up again. Another catasetum type that is finally putting out a new growth. This is Cycnodes Wine Delight. This was a huge plant I divided up and just kept the back bulb. And at the very base here, you can see it's pushing out a new little growth down there too. What's interesting about this plant is that, you know, I've had it for about 5 years, and every year it kind of does the same thing. The new growth roots, and the roots don't really do much until later in the season, and then later in the season I start getting all this root growth kind of after the plant has fully grown, which is kind of interesting to me. So I actually watered this yesterday or the day before, and I think that'll be the last watering that I give it. And hopefully, see those new roots? That it did not look like that when it was kind of more in the growing season, but I'm going to let this little guy get bigger, and that'll start rooting probably within a month. Hopefully by then, well, but in a couple weeks it'll be completely dry, and I'm not going to repot this. This pot should be big enough to accommodate it. I wish it had put the growth out on the other side where there was more room instead of on this side, but that's the way it goes. So Cycnodes Wine Delight also starting to grow. Last week I showed you this little cutie, Bulbophyllum crocium. Unfortunately, the flowers really did not last very long at all. You can see the one I showed you last week, the little flowers, not much left of them. This is the other one. Just a really nice, brilliant orange color, but didn't last very long. Did have a fragrance, kind of, just kind of a, first of all, very faint. You have to have your nose right up there in it, and you can kind of smell like an earthy, sweet, earthy fragrance. Like it makes me think of like overripe fruit, or even like wet autumn leaves after a rain. Not an offensive odor at all, but really not that strong at all either. So if anybody has experience growing orchids that drop their leaves for some reason, I'm not sure why this plant does this, but the leaves turn yellow. There's another one back here. They turn yellow, kind of brown from the tip, and then they turn yellow, and then they just fall off. You can see there's lots of bulbs without leaves on them. And I'm not really sure. I was kind of looking into Masdevallia and Dracula culture, and just kind of investigating what happens when those plants are grown too warm, what the leaves do, or if it's not humid enough. Because it's humid in here, but maybe not humid enough. Some of these plants really need like 90% humidity all the time. But, and I guess it's also possible that the plant just doesn't hold on to its leaves very long, but that doesn't seem very likely. So If anyone has any ideas, just throw them out there. I'm very curious why this plant would not, hold on to its leaves very long. Actually, I just kind of spotted something. Look down here. Is that another flower spike, you think? Or is that, maybe that's a growth. Might be a growth. Okay. Bulbophyllum crocium. Another plant that I haven't seen a lot of action from in the few months, Cattleya, walkeriana. And look at this. This little nubbin here. Something's going on here. That thing has swollen up in the past week. And it looks like something's trying to push out, so I'm gonna assume it's just gonna be new growth. I cannot imagine that it would try to bloom this late in the season. And just across the way, there's a staircase in this building, and there are lights in the staircase that are open, that are on all night. And apparently, light can keep this guy from blooming. And I haven't been doing a very good job at closing the blinds at night, so still nice to see something happening. Does have a couple roots growing out the bottom there, but then this little growth looks like it's pushing out too, so nice to see something going on with that guy. The other Cattleyas definitely growing like crazy. Got multiple growths on many plants, some of them actually quite far along. This one's so far along, I wouldn't be surprised if this is in fact going to be a blooming growth. I would expect it to bloom sometime at the end of March, very early. So that is going to be great. So many of them have growth. Two huge ones on this one here. Even Cattleya maxima. Two recently completed growths, really nice. Big sheaths there. And then it's got a new growth coming up at the bottom. But I think that this plant is actually multiple plants, kind of seedlings that were all bunched together, because it's kind of constantly growing, and there's some bigger leaves and smaller leaves. And this is a plant, Cattleya Rex, that I've always been suspicious that maybe it could be polyploid or something. It's always been really small, slow growing. The leaves are especially wide and also hard and kind of plasticky, very thick. So I've always kind of had my eye on this one as maybe being special, but who knows? Maybe it's just a runt. Oh, let's look at this guy, Mormodia Jumbo World. It finally looks like it's starting to fade. The first flower has kind of turned kind of a yellow. All the spots are gone. It's kind of funny how that happens. When it fades, the spots just disappear, right? It's supposed to have speckles in it. But then when they fade, no more speckles. But that's lasted, gosh, since the middle of December, a full month. Wonderful. Really impressed. I stopped watering this guy about a week ago, so he is pretty crispy. And we're going to let him sit around and not do anything for a few months until he decides to start putting out new growth. And I'm not sure if I'm going to repot it. I feel like that pot is pretty small. I might have to repot it. But if I do, I'll just lift it out of the pot and put it in a new pot and then stuff some sphagnum around it. I'm not going to disturb the roots. I think I told you guys I've been plant sitting some plants for a while. This is a Dendrobium lawsii, and the flowers on it, from what I can see online, really beautiful. Hot pink and orange, colorful flowers. And it's mounted, so I kind of spray it every day. And I need to contact the owner. Originally, I was supposed to be plant sitting for September and October only. And we're currently in January. Oops, there's the lights. So I think I need to contact him and be like, hey, what do you want me to do with your plants? And another plant I'm plant sitting for him. This is an area extinctatorium, I think it's called. And it grows little leaves and bulbs. And then the leaves fall off, and then it blooms off of just bulbs in the wintertime. Which is kind of cool. But yeah. So yeah, also, oh, the wrinkly bulb saga. So the plant that was kind of concerning me the most with its wrinkly bulbs was this Cattleya Rex, the largest one back here. And it seems to, it looks like it started to plump up for some reason. I have increased the amount of watering, I think, but not a whole lot. But it just seems like suddenly it's starting to take up water and hold on to it, which is good. Not so wrinkly. Another Rex that was kind of wrinkly was this one, and it really has plumped up. You can see the little wrinkles are they're just little bumps now. They're not really even big wrinkles. So that one's definitely been taking up water and holding on to it. Now this one's pretty wrinkly, but it doesn't concern me. It just put out a new growth, and it's putting out new roots. And it, over the past year, I feel like I've kind of noticed that when the plants are putting out roots, they tend to be kind of wrinkly. I wonder how much water the plant needs to push out roots like that, because roots grow fast, and they're not made of nothing. You know, they're made of mostly water. So maybe that could drain them, and maybe that could explain why this plant too, this Cattleya Jose Marti, while being such a strong grower, it's put out so many roots this winter. But it also has wrinkly bulbs. But I wonder if just pushing out all those roots takes water out of the bulbs. Seems reasonable, right? But in terms of dry seasons, so Cattleya Rex has a 4-month dry season, and what dry season really means isn't that the plants are like bone dry for 4 months, but it just means they get fewer rains. But in the wild, the humidity is still like 90%, and at night everything is coated with dew, condensation. So the plants still have regular access to water. They just don't get pouring rain that often. Maybe once a day, once every other day, instead of all day, every day for months, you know. But Cattleya Rex definitely seems to be a plant that likes regular moisture even through its dry season. So what I do during the dry season is I just cut fertilizer levels down to really, really low. Not zero, but low. And another thing that's really important for these plants during the dry season is warm temperatures. In their native habitat, the daily high is around 30 degrees Celsius every day, every month of the year. So heat, especially during the daytime, keeping warm daytime temperatures is super, super important. If you can't do that with these plants, if you're growing in a situation where it gets cooler in the winter, where your daytime temperatures are, like, I don't know, 24 C or less, that's like mid 70s or less Fahrenheit, then you can't water them. You just can't. Because wet conditions, any kind of water, and cool temperatures for anything more than a couple days, you're going to see root rot and possibly pseudobulb rot as well. So it really depends on your temperatures. Warm temperatures are what these plants are, what they get in nature, so they can handle regular water, regular moisture. But in your windowsill or something, you got to keep them dry. Otherwise, they're going to rot. Okay? And that's it. Hal's over here chilling out. I repotted Hal. I put some sphagnum in there to try to keep him a little more consistently moist. But I cut off his spike because he's been blooming nonstop for like 4 years, but not putting out any new growth. And Hal, we need to see some new growth, man. You got to grow. You got to put up some new leaves. These leaves, this one back here, this leaf is 5 years old. Like, we need some new leaves, guys. Okay. Just a quick look at the seedlings, Cattleya seedlings. Really impressed at this one. This is a clone. This is Cashins, Trianae Cashins. An FCC clone from 2006, I think. The pair of flora babies. In May, they will be 1 year out of flask. Some of them still pretty small, but some of them getting some size on them. These are the Blasphemiana. These have been out of flask for a year and 3 months or so, but they've had some setbacks. Right now they're looking okay. I learned that Blasphemiana is the name of the natural hybrid between Rex and Luteola, but if it's a man-made hybrid, like I would imagine these are, if you take a Rex and a Luteola and cross them, it's actually supposed to be called Bel Marisa, which is weird. I didn't realize you could give them a different name based on being an artificial or natural hybrid. Dendrochilum tenellum, getting some size on it. Really has lots of leaves on it. Kind of a very different, cool orchid, but you can see, look at those roots. It definitely is an orchid. It's got those chunky roots. These are supposed to bloom in the spring, so I've got my eyes on it. It's so crazy the way that it blooms. Like, you wouldn't think flowers could come out of these tiny leaves, but the flowers come right out of, like, just right out the sides of the leaves. It's bizarre. So hopefully we'll get something this spring. Keep my eye on them. Alright, that's it for this week. Thanks for stopping by. Everything's growing. It's springtime in the tent. Have yourselves a great week. I'll see you next time on My Green Pets. Have a good one. Bye.